And then I will go ahead and share my screen to start. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. So again, oops, I go up all the. We'll start at the beginning though. So again, welcome, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with the American Muslim Women's Giving Circle, which is part of the American Muslim Community Foundation. Today for the first of our third Wednesday webinar. So we're delighted to have all of you join us. Today's agenda is welcome to all of you. Would be speaker information, the presentation, intro to AMCF and the Women's Giving Circle, Q&A, then quickly about upcoming events, and then a survey. So today we'll be doing how to start your philanthropic journey with Shazeen Mufti.
Lisa, I can only
Sorry.
see your desktop. I don't see your presentation.
Okay, sorry. We will reshare. Okay. How's that?
That's good. You want to start from the beginning or?
Sure. Okay. Sorry about that. So again, we're welcome to the third Wednesday webinars. We'll be doing welcome, the speaker, her presentation, a little intro to AMCF and Women's Giving Circle, Q&A, upcoming events, and a short survey. So today we'll be having how to start your philanthropic journey with Shazeen Mufti. Shazeen is a management consultant working with AMCF. She specializes in developing strategies, setting up systems, and streamlining operations to increase the impact of nonprofit leaders. She has previously served as a COO for Developments and Literacy, DIL, the ED of the South Asian Network, SAN, and the Program Director for the National Conference for Community Justice, amongst many other opportunities. Currently, she serves on the board of the Orange County chapter of the Association of Fundraising Professionals and chaired its 2024 National Philanthropy Day event. So very honored to have Shazeen Mufti here with us today. And I will now turn it over to Shazeen.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Let me get my PowerPoint started.
If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. I will be monitoring while Shazeen is talking.
Great. Thank you. All right. Let me know when you can see my screen I'm sharing.
Not yet. Yes, we can see it, Shazeen.
Great. Just a little bit into it. All right. We're good?
Yes.
Thank you. So today we wanted to engage in the conversation on how to start your philanthropic journey. And we want to talk about what that journey looks like. And if anyone knows that, I know we have some very sophisticated donors to some new donors to individuals that might want to engage in the process. So I kind of tailored this so we can look at different perspectives, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. So engaging in the philanthropic journey is often like taking a trip and planning that out. So you have to know what's your starting point, where you want to go, how to research the options of, how to get there, what the destination looks like. And then depending on where you're going will depend on the vehicles that you're using, because it's not just, sometimes you have to take an airplane, a train, a vehicle. It's all different depending on what you're doing and where you're going. What guides will you use? What kind of GPS, maybe maps, depending on what area you're going to. And then what does reaching the destination look like? How do you know when you're there? And then we talk about then re-engaging in the process, because as we know, the journey in philanthropy is not a straight path, right? It is, there are ups and downs and twists and turns. And so it's not that straight path that I had in the previous slide. It looks more like, each part of the process is different. So the first part, when I do talk to people about their philanthropic journey, I ask them, what is your starting point? Right? And your starting point should be engaging in what you're passionate about, right? I know I started, in the philanthropic ecosystem on the nonprofit side many, many years ago. And I started working in areas that I was passionate about. So for you, what does that look like? And that's why everyone's journey is individual and different. And no two journeys are the same unless even if you're on the path with someone else, you can individualize it based on, your answers to some of these questions. So also, I know I'll probably be throwing a lot of information at you. We have some resources that we're going to be sharing with you after this presentation. And also we will share other ways that you might be able to engage. So this is just to get you to think. You don't, since we're looking at different perspectives, not everything is going to apply to everyone, but we want to get the conversation started and get people to thinking on, how to engage in this journey. So oftentimes what I do is I start with a couple of different sources on discovering where people's passions are. I developed a little system when I was working with a family that was thinking of setting up a family foundation. And so it was many different members. So we kind of had to figure out where each of their individual passions lay, and then how we could tie them together and they can engage on them together. Because oftentimes, like, different family members have different passions and different interests. And then where are the shared passions? Well, where are the shared interests that they can move forward on, right? And you don't have to pick one. But I also don't recommend you do like, all 17 at the same time either. So pick 1, 2, 3 at the most, and then concentrate on that. And that's the way to move forward. So I just kind of want to go over these. This is for, I work a lot with people who want to work on an international level, who want to do things locally. And some of these translate very well into local issues as well as, state and national and international issues. There's a few missing points in here that I think is important, especially for our community to engage in at the local level. So let me just go over this. Poverty is a big issue, and this is the #1 UN Sustainable Development Goal. There's, zero hunger. You want to concentrate on those issues. We have, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, reduced inequality, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and then partnerships for the goals. And I will tell you that, I've worked in many of these fields. One of the things that's not present here that if we, I'll share a resource that has different NTEE codes for different types of organizations that the IRS gives us kind of some standards on to be able to look at, organizations that are saying, what you don't see here is a lot of the arts and culture organizations, right? And that, especially those of us that are doing work in narrative change and storytelling about our community. That's an important type of organization that's not represented in these goals, but it is represented in the NTEE codes. And we'll make sure that we share that with you in the resources so you can look that up. Now, if you are trying to do some research on organizations, we want to direct you to GuideStar. In GuideStar, you can look up an organization by its name. If you have their tax exempt ID number, you can look it up. And when you go there, you will see what specific area that they function in, that they were approved by the IRS. Part of what we do is number 17, partnership for the goals. We're here as a conduit between, donors and nonprofits, and also individual community members that want to engage in the work, right? How do we do the work together? So I want to do a little shout out to number 17. Although everything is important, and if it wasn't important, it wouldn't be part of the ecosystem. That there are many different needs, but and I want to make sure that we have these conversations, right? Like I said, with family members. I know recently, my husband and I engaged with my son and asked him, like, what were his priorities, right? Recently, he's been involved in some of the, events that I've been to. So he's kind of gotten a backstage pass to see this work. And, oftentimes we put upon our kids what our values are. And so we wanted to ask him, like, which one of these, not only goals, but which one of these service areas really speaks to you, right? And he came back with hunger, right? He really wanted to do something on food security. So we want to be mindful of that, and then open up, what he's doing, so he has an opportunity to learn about that, to contribute to that, participate in that. So, all right, let me move on. So, and then when you're looking at this area you want to work in, the next thing we do is talk about, for a trip, where do you want to go? Is your journey local? Is it statewide? Is it national? Or is it international? Right? And you can choose one or other. You can choose, if you decide to do food security, you can do it at the local level, and maybe you can do it at the international level, right? You have the opportunity to pick each piece that you want to pick, right? Maybe you want to do a few different areas and you want to just do local and cover your local area. Maybe you want to do international and do a few different areas. The great thing is you can pick and choose what that philanthropic journey looks like, what it looks like when it's fully realized. So, and then usually when you're doing a trip, you research the area, you research how to get there. So what resources are available, right? Again, I wanted to make sure people know about Candid, where you can do research on the nonprofits. And actually, we're going to be having a wonderful webinar, part of this series, not the next one, but the one after that, with someone from Candid, and really letting you know the resources they have, and there's a wonderful opportunity regarding being able to get the foundation directory for free for a year, and we'll have our resource, our person from whose name is Zara, explain that in a couple of months. But reach out to us. When we say what resources are available, we want to be part of that resource as American Muslim Community Foundation, and we want to make sure that the community from every different angle has those resources. We're trying to develop our resources as we go. So, we're going to be doing a survey later today, and then also let us know what your resource questions are, because that helps us to build our information, our directories, and be that service to you. So, and then what vehicles are useful, right? When you're taking a trip, sometimes you take the airplane, then you take a train, then you take a vehicle, and sometimes you walk or hike or whatever. So where you choose to give, what you choose to give, what you choose to give to, can be determined by the vehicles you use. So what I mean is, you can give directly, right? And that's one way of giving. You can choose to give through a donor advised fund, right? And we'll be talking a little bit later about that. Or you can choose to give, through a fund at a community foundation, right? You can choose to give through a giving circle. There are many different ways to give. And as I say, you don't necessarily just want to give through one source, right? Just with your investment portfolio, it's good to diversify your giving and the vehicles you use because they touch and impact different areas. And then you have different, tax breaks available. You have different community information available, and it builds community in different ways, right? So um, you can pick to start to use one vehicle, such as direct giving, but then you can also later on down the road, um, be more strategic and find other ways to give. So, what guides will be most useful, right? When we do head out, we don't just head out in any direction. We either have a map, we have our itinerary. There is a destination. There's a way to get to the destination, right? So you want to be able to chart a course for your philanthropy, right? And that's where um, really the strategy goes in. Like, are you just looking to fund one organization? And that's fine. But if you're looking to fund multiple organizations, is there way to do that, right? Can you partner in different ways? Can you get information? And community foundations offer, giving through a community foundation offers you to be able to give to multiple sources, create a strategy, be that resource. So that's the space we're in. And then those also exist in your local community foundations, right? So the American Muslim Community Foundation serves the American Muslim community. We don't just provide funds to Muslim organizations. We provide funds to where, our donor advised funds allocate them to, or different funds we've set up. It depends on, what fund it is, what vehicle we're using to determine. So the good we do is for the entire community, but we give from a Muslim perspective. We give through many, Sharia compliant sources, investments and things like that. But we do give to a wide variety of community nonprofits. So reaching your destination, how will you know when you get there, right? So it's kind of easy on a trip. You get there, you land. But when you're on your philanthropic journey, it's really important that you yourself understand what the goal looks like, right? Because it's not always what you think, because the journey changes along the way, right? You head out, you start something, you think it's going to be, good, and then, factors come into play. So I know that happened when, at Developments in Literacy, we simply started off as an organization that funded educational institutions in Pakistan. And we wanted to, fund especially girls' education in Pakistan when we first started. And what happened was our donors came back and said, you know, we want to know more information, right? We want to know what your outcomes are, what's happening, especially at the time with the girls' education. Are they going to college? All these things. And because we were only funding and we weren't part of the process, we weren't part of the evaluation, we did not have answers that we could give them that weren't readily available because we're funding 8 different organizations over there. So what it helped us do, right, as an organization is to develop a process and take ownership and charge of our program. We developed the programs, we monitored, evaluated the programs, right? And then when we did that, it changed and we were able to give them down to the set detail where how the money was used, the outcome of the students. But it's good to think about that before you start, because had we thought about that, we would have set up different evaluation measures. So it's good to figure out, like, what do you want to see, and have that conversation with the organizations you're working with and funding. And also, on the other side of it, as an organization, knowing, what the outcomes you want for your organization. So think of that as you're planning your journey rather than on your journey. And things, like I said, shift and change, and you can shift and change with that. But having a strategy to make sure that you know where you're headed and how you're going to get there, it really will help you, um, you know, along the way. And then, you know, this is not, as we said, not a straight path. It's an ongoing process. So as all of us on the others in nonprofits know that, you don't keep your donors forever, right? People engage for a while, they give to you, and then sometimes they move on. So on the other side, we have to know, what we need when we reevaluate, like, what we're giving to currently. Is that what we want to fund ongoing? Is that a time commitment, and it ends, and then you pick another subject, and then we go through life changes, right? And so that also then determines what our priorities are. Maybe when you have kids, there's a different priority, and you're funding something differently. So always having that conversation and knowing where that is from your perspective and a nonprofit perspective. um, we know that the process is going to go and evaluate, and you're going to change, and then you might have different priorities, but you're still on that journey. So the good thing is, it's a process, but you don't have to do it alone. And the best way to do this and have help along the way is engaging in collective giving. So that is one of our focus that we have at the American Muslim Community Foundation. We are very tied to collective giving. The whole concept of a community foundation is having collective resources and distributing to community. So there's, it's embedded within our community foundation model. In addition, we're very engaged in giving circles. And giving circles allow people at all different levels to engage in collective giving. So I just want to give you a little background on some of the collective giving principles. And just to let you know, it is the fastest growing element of philanthropy today. And it's really just, and you don't just see it at the smaller levels, but you're seeing larger collectives of real large donors coming together and creating collective giving funds, and then giving through those means as well. So it's at all different levels of philanthropy. So collective giving involves individuals pooling their resources and knowledge networks together to support a cause collectively chosen by the group. It typically includes shared or democratic decision-making, community connections, learning, and engagement, all aimed at achieving amplified impact and empowering communities. Central to all such giving models is a practice of collective action and the cultivation of trust, where communities unite to effect change using various resources and forms of support, such as time, talent, treasure, ties, and testimony. And I will go into some of that, and how you, at whatever level, whatever perspective you're coming at, can engage in that type of collective giving. And this is from In Abundance, an analysis of the thriving landscape of collective giving. And this was something that one of our partners, Philanthropy Together, put together with their partners. So we're part of the Philanthropy Together Brain Trust on collective giving and giving circles. So we were part of this study. A couple of Muslim giving circles were part of this study. So we're really proud of our partnership, and it's where we get our resources, how we connect and collaborate with other larger giving circles, and how we impact change as well. So how collective giving is changing the ecosystem of philanthropy. So collective giving is democratizing and diversifying philanthropy. So it's as I mentioned, it's the rapidly expanding movement. Giving groups are overwhelmingly led by women, and we'll share that with you, and just a little bit about our Women's Giving Circle that Lisa will share in a bit. And it's shifting the narrative around who's a philanthropist. So one of the ways that Philanthropy Together and our partnership with them, they have a campaign that says, "I am a philanthropist," right? Everyone can be a philanthropist because everyone can contribute in different ways. It doesn't have to always be just monetary, right? There's other ways. So anyone can be a philanthropist, and we can be part of that ecosystem, which in the past was very much very divided and not inclusive, and had people who weren't part of communities really deciding where the money goes, how the money was used, right? And so this is flipping that that narrative on who decides where the money goes, who decide what work gets done, right? And that's very important in philanthropy these days. Collective giving is greatly expanding what gets funded, right? From groups center equity when making funding decisions. I know because I've been parts of different groups now, and it's really interesting to see the decision making and how it's made from a very different standpoint than those of us who used to work. I used to work for a nonprofit, and going, determining what program we do based on what funding's available, rather than having that conversation and letting givers, philanthropists, giving circles know what our needs are and getting those funded, right? That's a shift. Giving groups give to community-based organizations more so than others, right? We really like to support community organizations, and they're deeply invested in place-based philanthropy, meaning that a lot of giving circles, ours tends to be more national, but a lot of them are based in certain communities and funding community issues in their local community. Collective giving pushes the bounds of how philanthropy is practiced. This is what I was mentioning, that it's changing what counts as giving and harnessing all the 5 T's, which we'll discuss, and it's emerging as a space for donor education and organizing. And that's really also key when we're talking about, doing the research. You don't have to do that alone. Being part of a collective means that you're getting information. You can use that to then further, and do research yourself, but there's sources of information, there's sources of connection, there's sources of understanding the field in a different way than we've been able to do in the past. So they practice trust-based philanthropy, where philanthropists are partners with our nonprofit, right? Rather than we give, you receive, you must answer to us. It's that we're all part of the same ecosystem, and we're just operating in different elements within the same ecosystem. So we're partners rather than the giver and the takee, right? That was the old thinking, but now it's that we're partners in social change. And it's a catalyst for social cohesion and change as well. So giving groups act as explosive democracy. You have to come up with ways. I know during our last cycle, which we just completed in November, we had some issues that came up, and we had to sit there and talk about, okay, how do we navigate this element, right? And it wasn't just leadership deciding, and it was a collective decision that we made together, right? Really understanding the different aspects of a question and how we should navigate that. It fosters bonds with groups and across communities. And Lisa and I can speak to that because we have been just having the most wonderful conversation with the communities that we engaged in our last cycle, and it's it's the thing that we hope we're doing in community building as a community foundation. But when you're doing the work and you're hearing the stories and the impact that's making, even when it's small dollars for some organizations, but the impact is, we'll talk about to have a different way of engaging with donors. So, and collective giving spurs a deeper level of civic engagement, right? We have those deeper conversations. Some of the groups that we're involved with actively do civic engagement, and they let us know. They're always informing us how we can be more civically engaged, how we can work at the local level. So, being part of that ecosystem of that learning and understanding the different ways that we do community building, how we can do narrative change, how we can put our communities' issues and partner with other communities that are going through issues as well. That's what creates that change mechanism. And then it deeply impacts members themselves, and you can tell that I know I've been impacted by my engagement, even though it's from an institutional level, but just the individual. I know how much I've learned and grown since I've been engaged in this work, and it fosters belonging, purpose, connection to community, right? And like, what better work for a community foundation to do, right? If we're here in the business of building community, this is where it starts. So, and collective giving enhances members' professional pursuits. And that might be creating networks, right? We talk about not being enough networked enough in our community. And we have, the beautiful thing is that there's so much great work being done in our community, but to connect the people who are doing the great work with each other, to be a resource to each other, that's the added benefit. So it's helping the individuals, it's helping the community, it's putting out positive messages about our community, creating that narrative change. So engaging in the collective giving through the 5 T's. So I often share this little graphic when I do my DEI work, that we all see things through different perspectives, right? And even though we're in the same ecosystem, we're working together, how we engage depends on our perspective. So if you're blindfolded and you look at the elephant and you're holding the tail, it's a rope, right? If you're at one of the legs, it's a tree. So it's the same animal, but how you perceive it depends on your perspective. And the same thing happens when we are within our ecosystem, right? So the different perspectives, I just wanted to focus because we're all doing different things, but within the same ecosystem, that we have a donor perspective, we have nonprofits perspective, we have an individual perspective, and I wanted to add the youth perspective because that is something we are committed to engaging in youth philanthropy. So we want to bring that perspective into our conversation even before we do the work, because we're preparing ourselves, we're preparing for that program to go forward. And we start with understanding that how we how youth want to engage is very different sometimes than we do, and understanding that perspective and knowing what that is and always having that conversation with them is important to the work we do, to make sure that we're developing new philanthropists, right? And that each individual person and student can engage in philanthropy at whatever level they're at. So engaging in the 5 T's. So first we start with the T of collective giving. And from a donor perspective, and these are, things that we can look from different perspectives. From a donor perspective, it really means taking time to talk, right? Having that conversation. And sometimes we only ask for like a page report or whatever. But if you supplement the reporting requirements with conversations, so you really understand what the nonprofit needs are, right? You're not just saying, okay, we checked this box off, but engaging in philanthropy takes that time from donors as well as other means. From a nonprofit perspective, right? Are you creating the volunteer opportunities for your different stakeholders to engage with you, right? Do you have job descriptions? Have you looked at, ways that people can give not only from a monetary perspective, but what time would be helpful to you, right? Does that look like creating job descriptions? Is it volunteering at an event? Is it, you know, I worked for a homeless shelter for many years, and we had, uh, you know, our office staff were volunteers that committed like 3 hours a week. They came in for 3 hours, 1 day a week, and they were ongoing. And it really provided us with good support and reduced, you know, our payroll for not having, you know, because it's a 24-hour staffing situation. So it really helped us in that way. So even though it wasn't monetary, it helped us in monetary ways, right? And individuals, like how individuals can engage is allocate time in their schedule to volunteer for your favorite cause, right? If that's once a month, right, and you're doing certain things, that's fine. If it's, you can eke out, you know, a few hours a week, you know, come down and participate, that's fine. But the nonprofits can look at what, you know, what you need, what you don't have filled, and really create those descriptions for them, for individuals to participate. And then for youth, you know, utilize opportunities to learn more about a field you're interested in, right? That's why we put, like, how maybe I engage in a volunteer opportunity may not be how a young person maybe who wants to learn how, you know, an office structure works and come in and, you know, give them tasks to do that's age appropriate, but they can learn about, you know, if they want to go into the healthcare field, maybe it's they volunteer for a healthcare organization. You know, if they want to go into the arts, there's arts organizations. So, you know, as parents, we can look at opportunities that exist and then help our kids to engage in them, and then have structures that support that talent. Um, so for donors, ask fundees what talent needs they have in doing their work, right? Oftentimes we ask for the monetary stuff. We don't say, hey, you know, and talents can be all things, you know. I know I've benefited from having lawyers on my several of the boards I served on, right? And they were very generous with their time and their resources, and opening up doors to other people. Uh, you know, I was a financial director for many years, worked with a lot of CPAs. There's, you know, a lot of professions, but then sometimes we don't talk about other talents and skills. So nonprofits provide opportunities for stakeholders to engage with their talents and skill sets, right? And I have an example. I'll share that with in a minute. You want to use your, as individuals, we want to use our professional skill set to help nonprofits. And one of the best ways you can offer your talents is serving on a board. So anyone who's not currently serving on a board, want to, you know, put a shout out for that, because I know all organizations are looking um, for board members. And then for youth, uh, they can often use their individual talents and privilege to assist others in the community. And the reason I have an artist here is because that's one of the things one of my nieces did, is that she's an artist. And so she developed a project where, you know, we have certain organizations that work with the refugee population. And so she offered her time and her talent to teach young kids from, you know, underserved communities to how to draw, how to paint. And she worked in a shelter, and it just was a very successful program. So it doesn't, you know, it's not something. And then we have organizations in our community that, you know, want to engage in different programs, and this is one way to do that. All right, I'm going to wrap up here in just a couple of minutes, but I want to talk about uh, treasure. This is, you know, oftentimes it's the money, right? But there's, even with the treasures, there's different ways of giving. So for donors, we really want to emphasize understanding community needs, because oftentimes we give to something, but we don't always understand the full need of the entire organization. And then I'm always going to be a proponent of, you know, funding the gaps in operational costs, right? We give to programs, we think it just should be on the program side, but operations, you know, support and make the programs happen, right? For nonprofit, provide stakeholders of the true cost of running an organization, right? Sometimes we only give them a cost of our program and not our full operational cost. So make sure you're putting that into the conversation in the proposals. Research the need, you know, individuals research the needs of each nonprofit, and again, fund operational costs. Big proponent of that. And then For youth, you want to reach out to family and friends and find the right fit of, you know, to when you're raising money and if they want to give to your cause. So, and we'll wrap up in 2 minutes here. So, with donors for ties, I think this is such an overlooked element of giving. Oftentimes we have connections that can assist nonprofit, it can assist in charitable work, and maybe we don't think of it. So just taking the time to understand, like, donors connect nonprofits with beneficial connections and fund the work. Um, it's important that nonprofits at the local, join networks. Oftentimes, I know I've benefited so much from being a part of a network, and it's, you know, put my nonprofit out there, has put our work out there. But oftentimes our community doesn't pay for membership dues for networking opportunities, but it's important, and it's important that funders help understand what it can do because it increases funding. And so make sure you include it in the proposals, and for donors, make sure that you're funding that because it expands the funding opportunities. Then individuals, engage in crowdfunding campaigns for designated nonprofits, and then youth can reach out to family and friends to find the right fit as well for connecting people. And then testimony, um, again, often overlooked, right? Um, we want to have nonprofits develop ways that donors, individuals, and youth can share their message. And then you want to engage in crowdfunding, and then don't overlook the youth in creating a social media campaign for their favorite cause. With that, I say thank you. I know we went through a lot of things. I'm going to hand it over to Lisa to then share additional parts of what American Muslim Community Foundation is doing, and specifically the Giving Circles. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Shazine. I'll just briefly discuss the AMCF. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
So yes, we're with the American Muslim Community Foundation. We have a vision and mission and core values is to lead sustainable and strategic Muslim philanthropy for today and future generations, to cultivate donor giving and diversify funding to advance charitable causes. And our core values are to be sacred, strategic, sustainable, collaborative, diverse, inclusive, and with integrity. We work with donors and nonprofits. So donors, we have donor advised funds. We also have giving circles, endowments, and leadership development. If you're interested in opening a donor advised fund, opening endowments, and joining giving circles, those can be done with any amounts of money. There's no minimums. We also offer free and low cost leadership training. For more information on our mini programs, please reach out at Giving Circles at AMuslimCF. And then we are part of the Muslim Women's Giving Circle, which is a department of EMCF. Our purpose is to harness the power of American Muslim women through collective giving, combine and democratize our giving, amplify the message of women-focused nonprofits, support women in nonprofit leadership, and provide seamless big dollar donations to key organizations chosen by our members. Mashallah, we've learned that such a depth of talent in our community of American Muslim, and specifically American Muslim women. So we're really trying to lean in and amplify that. How does it work with the Giving Circle? You join at any amount. Members pledge just $5 or more. Voting members of $35 a month or $420 a year. Members can nominate, and voting members voting members can choose on any of the nominated. I messed up here on the slide, sorry. So members nominate a nonprofit of their choice, and voting members can then determine which of those organizations are going to be funded for the course of the cycle through attending our decision day and casting their vote offline for 3 organizations for the year. And last year, the 2024 Giving Circle cycle, collectively, our members raised $15,000. Thank you so much. And we were able to award grants to the Muslim Legal Fund of America, $7,500, Olive Community Services, $4,500, and Pillars of Peace, $3,000. Going forward, we're looking to do even more for 2025. So if you're interested, please scan the QR code, check us out on our website, and learn more and donate. I appreciate your support. And now time for Q&A. If you have questions for Shazeen, please unmute yourself or raise your hand, and we'd be happy to take questions about a little under 10 minutes.
Assalamualaikum. This is Adina.
Sounds like
YXM, I apologize. I had to take a call during, so you may have covered this. But I am curious about how often the group meets, and if there's interaction among the group, yeah, and how often.
Are you talking specifically about the Women's Giving Circle?
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And so, we started in 2021 and we had a lot of learning lessons. And when we restarted in 2024, the Giving Circle, we wanted to make sure that we were providing, like we said, that donor education, the feedback. So we tried, like, this webinar is part of our meeting and getting together and donor education. So this really started from our Women's Giving Circle, but then there was interest in it, so we opened up to everyone. And then, so right now we engage twice a month. We have this webinar, which is education. We're having some wonderful women speakers talking about marketing, talking about candid resources, talking about navigating the legal realities of giving internationally. So we have some wonderful things slated for these webinars. And then we are also have once a month that we're starting in January, a mastermind, which is really like once we, on decision day, there was such a great feedback between the members, right? Between the grantees and the nominees. And we're like, you know what, there's so much knowledge. Like, we don't need to leave the webinars alone, right? We're doing that with the community, but there's such a wealth of resource between just asking each other questions. So that mastermind really is to get that brain trust that it already exists, especially within Muslim women leaders that lead nonprofits, and share that out. So we're meeting at least twice a month, and then as things come up, we share resources, and we've been doing a lot of individual meetings, because we don't just talk about the 5 T's, we are living the 5 T's. So we were very intentional about, we knew we couldn't fund, we had 12 organizations that were nominated, and we knew we could only fund 3 because that's our model of first place gets 50, second place gets 30, and third place gets 20. So we knew only 3 organizations were actually going to receive funds. But what we could do was offer all the other T's. And one of the things we're offering is free consulting, services. So each nominee, even the ones that didn't win, get some free consulting. And then we connect and see how we can partner. So we've actually connected people together. We have, like I said, helped people like try to think out different business models, right? Because maybe there's something we saw in the process. So that was another thing. Our nomination process was very deliberative. We didn't want to be onerous where it was very difficult, like normal grant processes are, right? So we streamlined it down, but we made sure it was something that would benefit the nonprofits themselves, so they can apply for other grants, down the road, that it wasn't just for us. And even in doing that process, they got their documents together. They had to come up with their narrative. Like, there was things that helped them. And that's the feedback we've been getting, is that, it's great to be part of the circle, but that additional stuff helping, and it's capacity building, right? How you've helped us to understand what funders are looking for, right? And where there might be gaps in maybe our presentation and how we can do better. That in itself was very helpful too. So I know I answered more than your question, but it's at least twice a month that we're meeting, and like you can come to it, you can watch the recording. It's whatever is a benefit to the members. Some people tell us that they're watching the recording, they can't always make it live, but it's been helpful. So and then, like I said, we've been doing a lot of individual conversations as well.
I think Brother Javed had his hand raised.
Assalamu alaikum. It's a great pleasure to know about AMCF as well as hear Shazeen, and thank you for Lisa for doing the connection here. I'm an educationist based in New York. I have taught in New York City for a very long time, and I did my doctoral study here in the US with a background in engineering in India, Hyderabad. And the current work that we are doing is for quality education of the poor. We provide over 13,000 kids free education for the past few years. And we also train teachers. We have trained 1,600 teachers. So our task is to scale this as much as possible because the need is humongous. And we are using technology, Google Classroom, to do this. We are using a critical thinking, enhancing pedagogy to do this. So we integrate all of this in a package where we teach from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I have been a philanthropist. I have been funding this 80% of the time, and we also have other donors also who are helping us out. But we need a strong consultation and help in and guidance in how do we take this forward, because it's a very ambitious thing. And India being what it is, there is a high need for the marginalized children here. We are a secular organization. We have Muslims and non-Muslims, even though Muslims make up 80 to 90% of the learners. And we are also making madrasa education as one of our core areas of working. So we are currently working with 57 madrasas, providing them with basic education in English, math, and science, because they have been bereft of this education, and helping them pass the required exams so that they can also mainstream, take up skills training and all those opportunities which will empower them economically. So this is basically our stuff here, and I would like to take it from here. And whatever guidance you can give us and help you can contribute to us, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
So we really are developing a resource directory. Like, all these questions are very important because we need to know what the needs in the community are to be able to answer them, be that resource in the community. So we are going to be launching a resource directory in January for specifically for nonprofits, and we're also gathering information for to help donors. And we're really going to try to put out information that nonprofits need, right? To the donors, because we have over 200 donor advised funds, right? So we do work with donors on the other side. And so informing them, having this type of education so they learn what the community needs are very important. So I know we have a meeting set up, so let's discuss that further, what the individual needs are, but then we will also Lisa's gonna, she's developing that, helping develop that resource guide. So, ideally, and I know there's a few consultants on this call. I don't want to point them out directly, but we'll make some resources available to you that could help you.
Thank you. We'll take LaTanya's question, and then at the same time, we'll put up the survey. So we'd like everybody to just take a moment or two to fill out the survey so you can get the resources that Shazeen mentioned. So LaTanya, if you want to unmute.
And Walaikum salam. I was just going to say that if anyone needs to leave it for, you can watch the rest on recording or whatever. We're willing to stay a few minutes and answer any of the questions. So LaTanya, with that, please.
No worries. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So I am wanting to begin some type of philanthropic work regarding Native Americans who are Muslim and accepted Islam, and we're kind of spread out, and it's we have there's a need. So my question is, how would I have nothing, no plan, nothing right now, just an idea, just the passion. So how would my involvement with your organization like generally a timeline, how would like to kind of from start to finish, how long would it take, what does it look like, just briefly? Thank you.
So the specifics, it depends on the individuals, it depends on the subject area, so there's a lot. And so we can just contact Lisa, we can set up a specific time just to talk about your specific needs. But what I will say to you is what city and state are you in?
I'm in Yorba Linda, California.
Okay, great. You're in Southern California like us. So we can connect directly. So and so many things depend on local resources, depend on state resources and things like that. So what I'll say is let's set up an individual time to talk and we can talk about it, but there's no timeline, right? It really just depends on you know, what resources are available and what you can contact and what your group is, you know, what your support group's like. But yeah, let us help you in any way we can. So contact us and we'll walk you through some of the processes. Not sure where you're at in setting it up, but we can have that conversation and guide you more specifically.
This is my first step right here, attending this
Okay.
class. So
See, there's always that first step, right? And so this is great. Thank you for joining us. And like, you know, like, yeah, we'd love to help you in any way we can.
So thank you, LaTanya. And just, we'll take a moment if you want to take 30 seconds, just to scan the QR code or copy the bit.ly for our survey. We'd love to have your feedback. Well, this is our first webinar. We'd love to improve, you know, with your feedback is most appreciated. So if you kindly take that down, everybody who responds, inshallah, will get the resources Shazi mentioned. We'll give it a few seconds.
And I wanted to thank everyone that's responding on the chat and helping with resources, right? This is a great thing about the group, you know, that we have people that can assist you. And we're not the only resource here, so that's a great thing. So.
And then just briefly, we'll mention, as Shazi mentioned, we will be having, this is a monthly series. So next series will be on January 15th with Amna Mirza, an AMCF board member and also a award-winning marketing and brand strategist. She'll be sharing some top marketing tips for nonprofits on January 15th. So we encourage you to attend. Again, this is a free webinar. And then on January 30th, we'll be having our first mastermind session where again, we're leaning into the talent within our community. And Shazeen will show us how to use masterminds to build your nonprofit. It's a way to hear struggles and successes and learn within our own community. So we definitely encourage you to attend. Follow us on social media to learn more about what we're doing. Learn and join on our website. And feel free to contact us for a 15 or 30-minute chat. We're available. I also put the email in the chat and we'd love to hear from you. Just put up so thank you again. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time in coming. I will leave it on the survey and we will stop recording.
Thank you. And just wanted to point out, like I said, if you want to set up an individual, you know, session that's open to everyone, like I said, we're trying to figure out what the needs are. Having these conversations really helps us to develop our programming. And so thank you. It's as much of a benefit to us to talk to you as it is for you to talk to us. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us and thank you for the important work you do in our community.